Broadcasting from Salisbury University campus, this is WSDL Ocean City, NPR News Talk 90.7. Putting Delmarva first. Stay tuned for Delmarva Today with your host, Don Rush.
Trump slips in the polls, Pence wins with pundits, Clinton hunkers down, and Kaine slashes and burns. Welcome to Delmarva Today. This is Don Rush. The presidential election is just over 4 weeks away. Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump has now slipped in the polls with the CNN ORC survey putting Democratic rival Hillary Clinton up by 5 points. The battleground states, Clinton has recaptured a lead, with even Ohio putting her head by 2 points after Trump led by 5. First presidential debate is behind us, with Trump getting some tough reviews and putting a bounce into Clinton's step. The vice presidential debate found Republican nominee Mike Pence self-assured on style, winning many pundits, while Senator Tim Kaine carried out a full-throttle attack on Trump, and that's just within the last few weeks. Now all eyes turn to Sunday night and the town hall format, where Clinton and Trump are set to clash once again. In our studio to sort out the turbulence that is this presidential campaign, we have Dean Kotlowski. He's a history professor at Salisbury University. Barry Tillman, a Democrat and former mayor of Salisbury. And Sean Bradley with the Republican Party here in Wicomico County. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm just going around the table here. I'll start with you, Sean. Where do you see the state of this campaign at this point? Is it baked in now for Trump and his image? Can he come back from the setback, obviously, that he had within the recent week? Where are we in this campaign?
We can absolutely come back. Excuse me. After with the last debate, and now he's going to have time to reflect. He's had time to some coaching to really clarify what he's going to say and make a big comeback on Sunday evening. He's going against somebody, frankly, Trump is not as polished as a 30-year veteran in this game. If I were to start playing, if I was starting as a professional boxer next week against someone with 20 years experience, it's probably not going to go well. You have to have enough coaching, you have to have enough experience. And I think that he took a little bit of a beating last time, I'm not going to lie. But I do believe that Mr. Trump will be ready this Sunday and come across a little clearer and more concise in what he's trying to put across.
Barry Tillman, what do you think? Where are we right now?
Well, I think, the old adage very much applies here that overnight is forever in politics. So, it ain't over till the last vote's counted and the right hand's on the Bible and the oath is sworn. But I do think that Donald Trump has shown a tendency to kind of chase the rabbits down the hole, and that doesn't bode well for him. So I think a lot of this depends on how the Clinton campaign decides to play it. Are they going to throw out another Venezuelan beauty queen? Are they going to hang in there with the issues? I suspect it's probably going to be a combination of the two and just see how effective they are. And, of course, the Trump people, I think, are very, very much aware of that, and they're going to be trying as best they can to counsel Donald Trump not to take the bait. But I think if past his prologue, then it's going to be an uphill slog for him. But, it ain't over till it's over.
Dean, what about you? Where is this?
Well, if we look at it maybe in a historical perspective, it's still undetermined whether this is 1988 or 2000. Whether, like in 1988, we're going to have some sort of continuation of the party in power maintaining the White House for 3 consecutive terms, the last time that happened, or whether it's 2000, where the party not holding the White House is able to convince the country that there is a need for change, a desire for change, and a change is made.
Well, speaking of change, hold on there for a moment. Some people have suggested that this is a change election year, and some people have suggested that Trump was just a bad messenger, that had been some other Republican who had the nomination, that you would see Hillary Clinton, who has her own issues on a personal level, that there would be a change. Do you think that's true, Sean?
I think that's definitely the reason why Trump has gotten as far as he has, is people do want to change. They want to change in our economic policies. They want to change in our job growth. They want to change in our immigration policies. They want to change on many things. Trump has been able to articulate that the most clearly. He's brought that very clear, and it's really rang true with a lot of people. And I think the polls that are out recently aren't necessarily reflective of America as a whole. I don't know exactly who they're asking, but not everybody, there's a lot of people that are in the shadows there, or who don't come out and speak to organizations that vote. And I think we're going to see a big surprise. But yes, there is definitely that need for and desire for a change, whether it be Trump or someone else.
Bert, what do you think?
Well, I definitely think this is an election about change. And I would say that's going back to the Sanders campaign, it's an election about change. And I think that I believe that Hillary Clinton offers the best possibility of that in terms of, the situation with college loans, the situation with the minimum wage, the situation with family care, not just maternity care, but family care. I think that Hillary Clinton offers the best possibility for change within the framework that a lot of the Sanders people, the Sanders Revolution, talked about. And I will agree with Sean that the people who came out and have supported Trump in the Republican primary certainly do want to change. They're unhappy with the way things are. They've been in the shadows, so to speak, for a couple of decades, and it's tough. And but I would say that if you want an agent of change, then Hillary Clinton is your person, not because she's been around for 30 years, but because after 44 men, she's a woman. And I think that's the greatest change you can ask for. I have a story my dad one time told me. He said, I've stopped sending my money to the men, Barry. And I said, well, Daddy, you're a pretty conservative guy. You're sending your money to Emily's List. You're sending your money to Barbara Boxer and Dianne Feinstein. He says, well, I figure men have had their chance, and it hadn't gone so well. So I do think it's time for women. And that was before I ran for mayor. So he said that when I ran for mayor, I'll send you the money this year, honey. But I do think I had a friend who had a bumper sticker that said, "Try women for a change," and I think that's the change that this country needs.
Well, Gene, I want to turn to you because one of the things that has struck me about this issue is that we've emerged out of the Great Recession. More serious recession we've ever seen since the Great Depression, and it's still lingering on. We had some unemployment figures that come out. Jobs jumped again by about 156,000 in September. That's a little down from the increase that we had in August, which was 167,000. Unemployment rate's now, I think, at 5% as opposed to 4.9. Is it change that people are looking for, or are they just weary of how long it's taken for us to recover from the financial crisis?
I think it may be more of the latter. It's amazing to me interesting to me, how the right track, wrong track is about 60%, 63%, and yet President Obama's approval rating is over 50%. And that's at least the second or third presidential election cycle where we've seen something like that. 2008, 2012, 2016, where at least if we believe the polls, it's the Democrat who they seem to prefer, and Obama's approval rating being respectable so that if he were running, he might do very well. I'm interested in what Barry just said, though, about her father. My late stepfather was a Republican, and we lived in New York State, and he voted for Hillary Clinton for the Senate in 2000 because he wanted to make a change. And he thought, well, let's see what she can do. In 2006, he thought that was one of the biggest mistakes he's made. That was his opinion, not necessarily mine.
Well, let's turn to the vice presidential debate for just a moment. Tim Kaine and Mike Pence. Pence got a lot of glowing reviews for certainly his style, for his calmness. Pundits seem to think that he won, and some subsequent polls indicated that at least a lot of people thought that he won. Tim Kaine went after, of course, Pence, and not really so much Pence, but went after Trump with a whole slew of things. Which some people suggest that Pence simply deflected and then attacked Hillary Clinton. Where do you, Sean? I'm assuming that you view that Pence helped the Trump ticket, but at the same time there was all these sort of unanswered questions or unanswered charges that Kaine made, whether it was stylistically good or not. I mean, some people suggested that he just simply didn't defend Trump at all.
I think, first of all, I think what Pence was trying to say overall was that either the Republican candidate or Hillary Clinton, the Democrat, were not mustache twisting villains. They both want the best for the country, and what I enjoyed about Pence's presentation was it was he tried to push through the issues where Kane was more insult driven, like he said in the debate, is an insult driven campaign. Instead of focusing on interrupting and an insult, Pence tried to push, clearly and calmly, their agenda, which is, what else are we talking about, is the betterment and going forward of our country. That's why we're all here in the first place, parties aside. And that's what I got mostly from Pence in his presentation. I really do not know who coached Kane or what he was trying to, but he definitely went about it the wrong way. I don't know where he was coming from.
Do you think that this was a reverse of what we saw with Clinton and your Republican nominee?
Possibly, but like Pence said, Trump is not a polished politician. He's more of an everyday businessman. Does he need to take it back a few steps? Absolutely. If he's going to ultimately defeat Hillary Clinton, he's going to have to come across with more issue and less, dazzle. He's going to have to come with a not necessarily so much of a polished package, but a polished presentation and agenda that people will understand while he's talking about it on stage.
Barry, what was your assessment?
The vice presidential debate. It
Yeah.
was that I think Mike Pence came across very well with one caveat, and I'll talk about that in a second. I think that it went very well for Mike Pence, and I suspect there was more than one Republican out in the TV land who was saying, "Why isn't he on the top of the ticket?" So I do think that was it, and I think that Senator Kane's performance was atypical of Senator Kane. I think he is generally regarded in great respect among those who've worked with him. I mean, he started out as a mayor, that's tops in my book. But I also think that one of the challenges that Governor Pence has right now, and the Trump campaign has, is that a lot of the statements that Tim Kaine brought up that Governor Pence did not really refute. He would say he never said that, and then 2 seconds later the cable stations were broadcasting where Trump had said it or Pence had said it, like whether it was about Vladimir Putin or what. So I think that that gives the Clinton campaign some fodder to come back, and he minced words about the Mexican thing. When Donald Trump announced, Governor Pence said that he said many are very fine people. Well, that's not quite what Donald Trump said. He said, and some I assume are good people. So I think that they're going to. I don't know if they're going to have to walk them back, but they're going. That's going to nag at them, I think, for the next 4 weeks. The fact that Pence really did not, in an effective way, defend. I agree with Sean that he came across in a much more statesmanlike manner than Donald Trump ever has, and kind of presented both of them. Let's kind of elevate this campaign to a little higher level. But I do think that his inability to refute the statements that Senator Kaine made are going to just kind of dog at the campaign for the next month.
Dean, as a matter of fact, I was reminded when we had this discussion that of the Kennedy-Nixon thing, in which when people heard that debate, people
Right.
thought that Nixon won. They saw it on television. No, it was reversed. Obviously, much more low-key than certainly this debate. But are we seeing this sort of substance versus style issue? I mean, what do you think's going on here?
I think you're definitely seeing that substance versus style issue, at least on some level, because they always used to say with Kennedy that television was a cool medium, and I think Pence played to that. And Kaine was a little warm, I guess you could say, and a little enthusiastic. I would just say 3 things, if I could, about the vice presidential debate. First, I think like a lot of vice presidential debates, it's not really going to matter very much. There wasn't any sort of memorable one-liner. Secondly, I was a little disappointed that they didn't get into Governor Pence's views on gay rights, because I think that that's something Sean talked about what the country wants. It seems to be moving in a direction that's very pro-gay rights and things. And then the third thing is how these two men are such kind of conventional politicians, hearkening back to the past. Again, speaking as a historian here, Pence reminds me, in terms of the way he looks, of a Democratic politician from Indiana, a governor who I've written about, Paul McNutt. White hair, handsome, playing a little bit maybe to the base, never nominated for vice president. Kaine reminds me of Hubert Humphrey, a not particularly physically attractive guy who had been a mayor and a senator, and has this kind of ebullience about him. And I think you saw some of that ebullience in the way in which he went after Pence. And Hubert Humphrey is an attack dog. When Johnson had him do some of the dirty work, didn't quite work. It didn't really fit his personality. I'm not sure what what Senator Kaine did, really fit his personality.
If I may, though,
Go ahead.
Ms. Tillman, you had mentioned that Pence didn't really refute anything. Frankly speaking, did he have a chance after he was being barked over every chance he got? He was being constantly interrupted, and the moderator did absolutely zero to really control it.
Well, I agree that the moderator was weak. I wish there had been a different moderator. I think that's a valid criticism, but I do think that there was ample opportunity for him to refute some of the things. And getting back to what Dean just said, I think it's interesting to watch the fact that Governor Pence actually said things, not just didn't bring up the gay rights, but said things that were counterintuitive to what Donald Trump has said, like about the Russians, how he would handle the Russians, and that's very different than what Donald Trump has said. But I think he had ample opportunity. But I will not deny the fact that Senator Kaine was right there on everything.
Yeah.
Sean, what about this issue about differences that seem to show up between Pence on the one hand and Trump on the other when it came to policy or approach? I know that in the aftermath post there was some explanation of how to fit those two views together. I mean, did it get a little out of focus there in terms of you trying to compare the two, or what's your sense about that?
It's a great contrast, fury and focus. Okay, we have someone who has the fire to want to make change, has done so in all his business aspects, and you have the focus, the experience. That's the strength of this duo. Pence may not be all fury, that's for sure. He seems to be kind of a laid-back guy. Then you've got Trump, who's the other side, who's maybe the big picture guy and the detail man. Together, you've got a winning team, a great management style. And I look at it from a management standpoint. What exactly is when you're in office? It's a management office. You're managing a project, and this is one of the biggest in the entire world. And I think together with their focus and his fury, I think you've got a very nice package that could help lead us forward.
I want to turn to something, by the way, that Barry alluded to, and that was the issue about women coming out of this thing.
Sure.
We know that in the public opinion polls, Donald Trump's not doing very well with women, certainly behind Hillary Clinton, beyond just simply the fact that the woman she's the first woman to become a nominee. And I'm just wondering whether or not that portion of the campaign may be cooked. I mean, we had obviously his criticism, almost an obsession at one point with the Miss Universe, Alicia Machado, got deeply criticized. As a matter of fact, some of the opinion polls post first debate emphasized it wasn't even as much the first debate and his performance as it was then his obsession with tweeting and so on. Is there some way for him to come back to appeal to that segment? Is it lost? What's going on here?
They're going to continuously come up with things like the Miss Universe or Rosie O'Donnell or blah, on and on and on. What I would say if I were his advisor is make it public his hiring records of his firms. He hires talent. Look at the women that he's hired over. If he were a sexist or against women, you would believe that the representation of his staff would be overwhelmingly male. That's not the case. He's not, if you spin any kind of message to your direction, you can make it. The right person could make Hillary Clinton anti-woman if they wanted to, if they spun the media correctly. And I think this is a powerful, I think it's a smear campaign. Now, has he said some stupid things? Sure. But who hasn't in their lifetime? And if you've said something 20 years ago and it comes up, you think you'll remember exactly what you said. That's my take on it.
Barry, what about that? I mean, because there seems to be sort of two tracks that I think Sean alludes to when it comes to Donald Trump. One is, on the one hand, he's quite right. He's hired a number of women, and then we've had talked a good deal about that, in high positions. One of the first women, for instance, to carry out a construction project, for example, right? On the other hand, we have this other Trump who's involved with the beauty pageant and has said some things that clearly one has to view as being sexist. How do we sort that out?
Well, I think that, it's something that's been quoted oft during this campaign, Maya Angelou. If somebody shows you what they are, believe them. And I think that, Sean makes a good point. People say things and they evolve and they change, and 20 years ago. But the problem is Donald Trump never walks it back. He never says, hey, with the Miss Universe thing, if he had said, hey, listen, I agree we didn't have the best relationship, and I'm really sorry, and I wish her well, and, it would have been a 10-minute story. But that's not what happened. And I think we continually see the same Donald Trump where he can't let the bone go. He obsesses over, small slights and criticisms, and I just think that that's a very, very tough road to go down when you're talking about the leader of the free world who's going to be making split-second decisions that affect millions of lives. I think Donald Trump has shown an appalling inability to say, I was wrong, I regret that, or I'm going to learn more about it. And I think that, Sean makes the point, which is on paper a very good point, that, Trump and Pence are the yin to the yang. But the problem is that Donald Trump has shown that he doesn't listen to anybody. He doesn't take the advice that's given to him by the people who've been in the game for a long time. He can keep it together for a few days, but then it kind of all goes by the rails. And it kind of reminds me, when you used to have what my dad called hard talk with my children. And, Daddy would say, we're going to talk. I knew 3 things were going to happen. He was going to talk, I was going to listen, things were going to change. And with my kids, when they were very young, we'd have the hard talk, and I would talk, they would listen, things would change for 3 days, and then we would go back. And I think that's where Donald Trump is, and I don't know if he has the ability to change. I believe that his business acumen, he puts women in positions, but I also think that the true Donald Trump is this: she's a fat pig, she's a slob. He brought up Rosie O'Donnell during the debate. Why? It was inappropriate, and constant inappropriate remarks are not the hallmark of a leader of the free world.
Dean, let me ask you about this issue of temperament. I've been following presidential politics for a long time in elections. I've never seen a discussion about temperament in a presidential campaign. There'll be differences, policy differences. The closest I think I can come is Goldwater, right? Who said, "Hey, you don't want this guy's finger on the nuclear button." But I've never seen the discussion about temperament, as opposed to Clinton, who still has all these distrust issues. She's still, people just, no matter what it is out there, that's still out there. Historically, how is this a unique thing at this point, or do you recall?
I would definitely go back to the Goldwater campaign and the famous Daisy ad, but there were other television spots as well that were done. There was one with Johnson talking about how a steady leader he was, and how there are a few requirements that are written down for a president. You have to be a certain age, right? You have to be native born. But a president, the character is something that this ad said we have been lucky with so far. And that was the idea, that Johnson had that right temperament, and you don't necessarily want to make a change where there's some sort of uncertainty about the temperament. Could I just go back to talk about a little bit about bias and things along those lines? Words matter and deeds matter. And you have to take both of them, and you've got to weigh all of it together. What I did when I was studying Richard Nixon, I found that he said some things in private that were not very nice about various groups. In public, he tended to ignore issues of civil rights, and yet the actual policies, affirmative action, school desegregation, renewal of the Voting Rights Act, these sorts of things were pretty impressive. So to the listeners out there, never underestimate the complexity of human beings. People will often harbor deep biases, whether it's sexism, racism, whatever, and still believe that those groups who they're biased against deserve the opportunities to compete. For Nixon, we're in the middle of the Cold War. We need every person of talent we possibly can have. And for Mr. Trump, he certainly is going to hire women if they're talented, and they're going to make him money.
Well, let me
Who wouldn't?
Go ahead.
Who wouldn't? That's my response.
Well, let me just turn finally to we're heading towards obviously the next debate, which is really a town hall, and it seems to me that the town hall will at least keep some of the interjection that we saw, for instance, during the first presidential debate from occurring, because people are further away, they have to separate, they're talking to individual voters. Sean, I'll start with you. How do you see Trump handling that? And one other question I had is, if he does become lower key, does he lose the spark that people find attractive?
Not if he starts answering some of the questions that people have. If he can start actually saying, it's one thing to say, believe me, it's going to happen, or believe me, I'm going to do this, believe me, I'm going to make Mexico pay for the wall. Okay, fine. You've got my attention. Now let's find out how you're going to do it. Let's talk tax. Let's explain to the people. Don't yell over Hillary. Don't yell over the moderator. Speak about how you're going to do it. Win your party back. Win the people to your side by explaining how, why, and when you're going to bring us and make us great again. That's what that's what the Republicans are waiting for as a party, to be reunified again with a leader who can make these things happen. That's how he's going to. I'm hoping that's what he does at this Sunday night's debates, and in the next coming weeks, as he explains how. Tell me why. Don't tell me you're going to give me $1 million and say, oh, don't worry about it, it's going to happen. Tell me how you're going to do it. How exactly are you going to give me $1 million? That's what the people are waiting to hear. If he can pull that off and he can explain what he's doing, how he's going to do it, and how, he's got it. If he doesn't, if he gives more promises without just, it's not enough to say, believe me, it's going to happen. You've got to tell us how. If he does that, I think he's got it in the bag.
Barry, how do you see Hillary approaching this? She's still got some difficult issues. Emails are still out there.
Indeed.
Some people suggest that some voters are more concerned about emails than tax returns, I might add, by the way. How do you see her holding up?
Well, I see her being the steady force she's been. I mean, she's done this. She's won campaigns. She's run campaigns. She knows what she's doing. I agree with Sean that it would be helpful to Donald Trump if he were to outline how he's going to do some of the things he's going to do, rather than I'm just going to fix it. I think that Hillary clearly understands that she has 535 people at the other end of the street from her office and home, if she is elected to the White House, that she has to work with. And I don't think Donald Trump understands that. And I think that you're going to see more from Hillary, where she's versed in the facts. She has a plan. She has a program of how she's going to make it happen. And Donald Trump needs to take that as a cue to have that same kind of program. But Hillary has it in place. I think you're going to see it in the town hall even better, because she reacts better one-on-one than she does in front of a huge group.
Well, that's it. Our time has run out. We've had Dean Kottlowski. He's a history professor at Salisbury University. Also, Barry Tillman, Democrat and former mayor of Salisbury, and Sean Bradley from the Republican Party here in Wicomico County. I appreciate all of you guys stopping by and chatting with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, Don.
This has been Delmarva Today. I'm Don Rush. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for watching Delmarva Today, a production of Delmarva Public Radio. Production and audio engineering by Chris Frank. Hosted by Don Rush. For podcasts, visit delmarvapublicradio.net or subscribe to the Delmarva Today podcast on iTunes. Delmarva Today can now be seen on PAC 14. For the Delmarva Today schedule, visit pac14.org or view the latest issue of the Daily Times.